Okay, Lori, I've got some great animal stories from around the world, and this was really interesting. And I think you talked about octopuses and how they change color recently. That was interesting. I found a more in-depth resource here that's newly published. And, octopuses, they are able to change their color so quickly, the quickest in any of the animals in the animal kingdom that utilize this. And the first person to record the fact that octopuses use this ability was who? Was Aristotle, 2,400 years ago. Yeah. So what makes an octopus change its color? Or really, how do they do it? The why, we think we know why, but the how is getting worked out a little better. So as you mentioned, they have these things which are little organs called chromatophores. So these are tiny color-changing organs, and they're throughout the skin of the octopus. And these chromatophores, they are actually tiny little sacs filled with these nanoparticles of the pigment. The pigment's called xanthomatin. I think I'm saying that right, with an X and two M's, xanthomatin. Anyway, these sacs are surrounded by an elastic matrix, and that is connected to a muscle cell that surrounds the sac that can contract and stretch and allow the configuration of the sac to change, and that will allow more or less light to reflect off the little particles, and each one is responsible for different wavelengths. There are three different kinds, yellow and red and brown, and they are arranged in layers on the skin, so that allows the colors to change so broadly and rapidly. These muscle cells, it's interesting, are connected by a direct neural connection. That is, a nerve goes to each one of these sacs. So you get a direct connection, and that allows the fine control over this, it seems. And the other thing that's interesting is that, the brain of the octopus, it's just not in its head. The brain is sort of all over its body, like brain nodes or something. I think that's what they call them. And that allows a direct and closer communication with these organs.
That's so interesting. I didn't know that about the brain.
Yeah. So there's more. There are also these things called iridophores and leucophores that also contribute to some of the visual features. The iridophores, they're a little larger than the chromatophores, and they are responsible for the sort of metallic or luminescent features because they've got this protein called a reflectin. So they create this sort of mirror effect. And then the leucophores, they are responsible for changing the contrast or the brightness of the array. And so all that together allows the octopuses to give you a wide variety of the visual things. They also have this ability to change the texture of their skin. If you notice, it can look smooth and then sort of bumpy. They've got these little things called papilla that they're able to control. So
this is all an attempt to just camouflage themselves within their environment, right?
Well, most of it is camouflage, that's right. But if you spend a little time with octopuses, you'll see that sometimes they use it to dazzle their prey. And so they can use it sort of as an offensive weapon also.
Yeah, I've seen these YouTubes. They're really cool, where an octopus is just cruising along the sea floor, and all of a sudden, as it's going into different colors of rocks and different colors of coral and different textures of the environment, it is changing.
Yeah.
His surface is changing from like a red to blue to, like you said, in a split second.
Yeah, really fast. And juvenile octopuses, they actually don't have the ability of the ones that are like 2 years older, so they get better at this as they age. But one of the mysteries that remains is that how does the octopus know what color or what pattern to adopt? Because evidently they don't see so well. They don't have a really good conventional visual system like we think about vision. And so where does that input come from? That still needs to be determined. So fascinating about octopuses.
Fascinating.
Two researchers out of a university in Canada, actually one is the student and one's the professor from the Department of Integrative Biology, they are bringing attention to the fact that lab rats or mice are not a great model for a lot of medical and biologic conditions in people. And the reason they are calling out is because the animals are so so stressed and so abnormal that it's causing a lot of waste in research and unnecessary killing, obviously. They published an acronym to describe the problems with these mice, which they call cramped: cold, rotund, abnormal, male-biased, enclosed, and distressed. And that might explain why some of the biomedical research has such low applicability to what's happening in humans and medicine.
It's so true.
It's true.
And we've been saying that for so long. And scientists
nice.
have been saying that for so long.
It's nice to see it formalized like this and restated, right?
It's nice to see it formalized and restated, but is it going to change anything on how we proceed in terms of experimentation on animals?
Well,
I don't think so.
We have an acronym. It's CRAMPed.
Okay.
Okay? Do you remember the complete disaster at the last Olympics, the modern pentathlon related to the horse that was abused?
Oh, yeah, the owner hit the horse or something?
Or the coach, somebody, the trainer
coach?
or somebody.
Yeah. What happened there?
Okay, so everyone saw that and was just appalled by that, right? And then the rider, she was crying, she was cheated, poor baby, right?
Right, poor baby.
Right. Okay. Well, the IOC, it turns out, has been working very hard, the International Olympic Committee, to replace this whole riding section of the modern pentathlon with a different event. And the riders are not all that happy, or the participants are not so happy about it, but it looks like it's going to happen. And they are actually reviewing more than 60 proposals of events to replace the horse riding. And actually, the international governing body, not the International Olympic Committee, but the governing body of the sport of the modern pentathlon, which wants to keep it in the Olympics, they are called UIPM. They recognize how the sport is being threatened. It's going to be booted from the Olympics unless they get rid of the abusive horse event. So they are reviewing over 60 proposals to replace the riding.
With like another horse event?
No.
Not using horses at all?
Right.
Oh, I love it.
Right.
I love it.
And they're looking at things like some kind of obstacle discipline that would be a form of racing, right? But not involving the horses. So
great.
We will see. So that was an incredible thing that the IOC realizes that this is antiquated and archaic. Right?
Yes, sometimes it takes these.
Right.
I mean, abusive, exactly. Sometimes it takes these events to be made public before people start to complain. Then they realize, right?
Yep.
So, wait, going back, was that woman or coach or trainer, whoever slugged their horse, was she disqualified?
I think it was a man, and I think he was sanctioned. Maybe he was kicked out. I remember reporting on this.
Okay.
So there was something.
Okay.
Something severe, right? But to me, the second most, besides the slug, was the crying participant.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, it's so clueless. Okay. Zoo anteater rabies case. Okay, some of our favorite things. All coming together because in Tennessee, they discovered that one of their newly received anteaters that they got from a zoo in Virginia had rabies. And it got sicker and sicker, did not respond to antibiotics. Then they figured out it was rabies, then ultimately had to be euthanized. Okay?
Tragic, not surprising.
Okay. So what is weird, at least from a scientific thing, was that anteaters really don't get rabies that often. They have a low resting body temperature that seems to protect them from rabies, and they don't really have this kind of rabies in Tennessee. But they think, going back, that the zoo that this anteater came from, they actually had wild raccoons infiltrating into the zoo, and they probably carried rabies like they do, and infected one or more of their anteaters. And then this one was shipped to be viewed and was sick already and brought it over. So
they're so corrupt. So they knew that.
They knew that there were raccoons running around, and that was a risk factor.
But they shipped the anteater when he was sick.
No, the anteater got sick later, or at least visibly sick. But the anteater probably had rabies, almost for sure.
Okay, well, zoos are still corrupt.
Well, yes.
I wonder if the anteater at the new zoo,
Yeah.
did it spread the rabies to any other mammals?
Yeah,
there?
I don't know that. I'm sure they're on the lookout. But the kicker of this is that there are a bunch of employees that had to have the rabies preventive protocol.
Right.
Because they had contact and might have been exposed to the saliva. So they had to go through that. I think there were 20 of them that needed to do that.
Wow.
They did not think that they were at risk for rabies, so they were not previously vaccinated like you can do. So
Yeah.
they had to have the whole protocol as if they were exposed.
Right.
So that would upset me if I was working there.
Yep.
Yeah. Snake story. A guy in Maryland, he unfortunately was found deceased in his home. They hadn't heard from him. They did a welfare check and found him dead. He had a meticulously kept personal zoo or horror show of 124 snakes in his home. None of the neighbors knew about it, and they were actually in fairly good shape. But it included snakes that no one's supposed to have, like cobras and rattlesnakes and black mambas, and a 14-foot Burmese python. And after his necropsy, they determined that indeed one of these snakes envenomated him and killed him. So,
what do you expect?
What do you expect? Right?
You know, the neighborhood and city is lucky.
Yeah.
That the snakes, one of them didn't escape.
Yep.
Kill your dog. Or
This guy, he was 49 years old. So in my, analysis, he's a little older than most of the guys who are still, doing snake stuff for fun. But still, give me a break.
Give me a break is right. Is he considered a hoarder or is he just a lunatic?
I think there are other options too.
Okay.
But yeah, we will not know. Maybe a family member or neighbor will say something, but it's weird. No word of what's going to happen with these snakes, but you don't want to mess with black mamba.